On today's edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the Stephen Wonderboy Thompson Shavkat Rakhmonov welterweight fight as part of UFC 296 T-Mobile Arena December 16th. If you've never watched a show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stuff. Some of the stuff may have value to you, it may not. That's for you to decide at the end. And then I'm going to give you my pick. And then you can discuss this fight with me in the comments. I'd love to get your prediction once I am done this video. Quick tail to tape between these two. You can see there Shavkat 17-0, Stephen Thompson 17-6-1. 29 years old to 40, 6'1" to 6 feet tall, 77-inch reach to 75. So Shavkat a lot younger and is going to be a little bit bigger in this fight. But we're actually going to start first with Stephen Thompson, the former UFC title challenger, as he looks to pick up a important victory here in the welterweight division. So I mentioned that they're 40 years old, 6 feet tall with a 75-inch reach. Doesn't have any major advantages physically or anything like that in this fight, as you can see. Thompson has a lot of accolades, obviously coming from a karate background. 17-6-1. He's got 8 knockouts, 1 submission, and 8 decisions. He's a first-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's also a black belt in American kickboxing and a brown belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's got fight of the night 3 times against Tyron Woodley, Vicente Luque, and Kevin Holland. He's got knockout of the night 1 time against Dan Stitchin, and he's got performance of the night 4 times against Robert Whittaker, Jake Ellenberger, Johnny Hendricks, and Jeff Neal. He's also tied with Vicente Luque for 3rd most post-fight bonuses in UFC welterweight division history. Thompson did not have an amateur debut. I mentioned it there. Extensive kickboxing and karate background there. You can see all that here, as you know, dating back to 1999, he's been kickboxing. Did not have that first pro MMA fight until February of 2010. Then made his way to the UFC shortly after that in February of 2012, which he won via head kick in the very first round. Thompson is 12-6 in the UFC. Some notable wins include Robert Whittaker back when he was in the division, Johnny Hendricks, Rory McDonald, Jorge Masvidal, Vicente Luque, Jeff Neal, and most recently Kevin Holland. Some losses include Tyron Woodley, Darren Till, Anthony Pettis, Gilbert Burns, and Bilal Muhammad. Thompson has had a few layoffs in his career. He was actually pretty active early on. I know Thompson gets a lot of flack these days about not being active enough, but you look at it here, he's fighting about 2 times a year to start his career off. Really where things took a bit of a nosedive in terms of activity was after the Darren Till fight. Going from that to Anthony Pettis, there was a 300-day layoff. Going from Vicente Luque to Jeff Neal, there's a 251-day layoff. And then going from Kevin Holland to Shavkat in this fight, there's going to be a 378-day layoff, which again, there's a variety of reasons for that. Supposed to fight Michel Pereira at UFC 289. They ended up moving the fight to July. Pereira misses weight. Thompson refuses to take the fight. We know the story there. I know he got a lot of backlash, but we'll explain a little bit later why he did not take that Pereira fight in one of the fights that happened previously. He's had a couple injuries. He had, there's some that have not forced him out of fights, but we'll just talk about the ones that have forced him out of fight. He was supposed to fight this guy, Bassem Youssef, back in 2012. He had a knee injury there. He was supposed to fight Brandon Thatch in 2015, had a rib injury there. And then there was I mentioned some of the layoffs there. The Luque fight, he actually broke his hand in that one, so that kept him out for a bit. And I believe he broke his hand again. So that's a part of the reason why he hasn't been as active as usual. He's getting a little bit older, 40 years old. So that's part of the reason why he has not been so active. Thompson's been involved in a couple close fights. You can see there, 47% of his wins are by decision, the exact same amount he has by knockout. Some of the ones that are included there are some close fights anyways. The first Woodley draw, if you go to MMAdecisions.com, you can see the media scorecards for that. So that was at UFC 205. I remember Thompson got knocked down in that fight. So looking back at the media scorecards for that one, 8 scored it for Woodley, 12 scored it for draw, and 2 scored it for Thompson. So either Thompson was going to lose or they get the draw. They ended up going with the draw, so he avoided a loss there. The second Woodley fight was a majority decision loss. Again, very close between these two. That was at UFC 209. 5 media members scored the fight for Woodley, 8 scored it a draw, and 6 scored it for Thompson. I think people did not want to see another draw again, but more people scored it for Thompson, and I personally thought you could have given it to Thompson in that fight. Very close matchup as far as that goes. So yeah, very, very, very closely contested matchup. But the one that everyone sort of talks about as far as close decisions was the Darren Till fight. And that's a fight where Darren Till actually missed weight. And this leads to the Pereira pullout, which I'll talk about in a second here. But you can see Till defeating Thompson in a 5-round decision. The fight was in Liverpool, which is Till's hometown. So Till misses weight. And he ends up getting the decision. Now, check this out. If you go look at the media scorecards for this fight, and again, this isn't the be-all, end-all, but I do like to go back and look at the media scorecards via MMA Decisions. That was in May of 2018. 3 media members scored the fight for Till. 22 media members scored the fight for Thompson. It's considered one of the worst decisions in recent memory here. Thompson definitely should have got the nod there, but, you know, definitely some hometown cooking playing a role. So that's part of the reason why Thompson says he didn't fight Michel Pereira. Pereira misses weight. Thompson's like, I don't want to be in another situation like this. My opponent misses weight, and then I end up losing a decision. But yeah, that's what caused a bit of an uproar. But you can kind of understand from Thompson's perspective, because this was a key loss for him back in 2018. Let's look at Thompson's stats here, just on the marker there. So his significant strikes landed per minute is 4.20. So he does hit a lot. His striking accuracy is at 45%. His striking defense is at 55%. He actually doesn't get hit that much. And then his takedown average is 0.27, not using the wrestling much. If anything, the wrestling's been used against him. His takedown accuracy is at 41%. His takedown defense is at 64%. So, and never goes for submission. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Again, big fight here for him against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Let's talk about his opponent, the Nomad, Shavkat Rakhmonov, who has a big test here against Stephen Thompson. I shouldn't say big test, but a interesting fight here. As you can see here, Shavkat, like I mentioned there, 29 years old. He is 17-0. He has 8 knockouts, 9 submissions, and no decisions. He's never gone the distance before. He's number 10 ranked. Actually, no, I got to look up the rankings here. I think he's actually moved up since 10. Shavkat is currently ranked number, what is he here? Number 5. He's number 5 in the division. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I mentioned it there. Shavkat is 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. So he's 11 years younger, and he'll have a 1-inch height and 2-inch reach advantage. Some accolades for him include he's a master of sport in combat sambo. He's a master of sport in MMA. He's also the former M1 welterweight champion, pretty prestigious organization over there. He's got performance of the night 2 times against Carlton Harris and Neil Magny. He's got fight of the night 1 time against Jeff Neal. Shavkat made his amateur debut way back in September of 2014, made his pro debut in October of 2014, and then went on to have his UFC debut in October of 2020, which he defeated Alex Oliveira in the very first round. Very good win there. Shavkat is 5-0 in the octagon. He's got 4 submissions and 1 knockout. Some notable wins in his career include... we're going to include the Jung Young Park win because he obviously went on to do some great things in the UFC. But we can also talk about Neil Magny. You know, he's a ranked opponent, beat him at the time. And then Jeff Neal. So that's one thing with Shavkat is that he's looked extremely impressive, but the competition, not exactly there. And there's a variety of reasons for that. A lot of guys don't want to fight him. You know, I guess you could count Michel Prazeres as well. He's a guy that's been hanging around for a bit. But yeah, really the only 2 notable wins are Neil and Magny for sure. That's Jeff Neal and Neil Magny, not just Neil Magny. He's had a few layoffs in his career, mainly outside the UFC. So going from his M1 challenge fight to his UFC debut, there was a 484-day layoff. There was COVID. There was a bunch of different things. I think some visa issues as well. Then going from Oliveira to Prazeres, there was a 245-day layoff. And then going from Prazeres to Harris, there was a 224-day layoff. But since then, he's been pretty active here. Actually, should mention that going from Neil Magny to Jeff Neal, there was a bit of a layoff in that one. And then at least this year, he'll be fighting in the same calendar year. So he did that last year. He'll be doing that this year as well. Remember, he was supposed to fight Calvin Gastelum in September. Gastelum had an injury. He's out of the fight. So they made the fight with Stephen Thompson. As you can see, Shavkat's never gone the distance. So he's never had any close fights. Let's look at his stats. So you can see there, Shavkat Rakhmonov, 4.45 strikes landed per minute. Striking accuracy is at 59%. His striking defense is at 53%. And his takedown average is accuracy is at 33%. His takedown average is at 1.49, and his takedown defense is at 100%. So he's never been taken down, and his submission average is 1 point high, which is on the higher end of submissions. Let's look at the odds, shall we? You can see there a lot of books having him about a 5-1 favorite. Minus 500 around there. One book, Unibet and Bet Rivers having him at minus 530. And there's a lot of reasons to feel that way. He's a lot younger. He's 17-0, and this guy does look like the real deal. And if you've been watching my show ever, you know I think very highly of Shavkat. I think he could potentially win the belt at any point because I think he's that good. And just one last thing I got to mention, the polling on Tapology as far as who people are picking in this fight. I always like to mention that now in these breakdowns. 89% of people picking Shavkat Rakhmonov, 11% picking Thompson. So which way am I going in this one? I don't think it's a big secret. I'm going with Shavkat Rakhmonov in this fight. But here's the thing, and this is where people may disagree with me in this matchup. I'm going to go Shavkat by decision, and here's a couple of reasons why. It's only a 3-round fight. I think a fight this big really should be 5 rounds, but it's 3 rounds, so the chances of getting a finish aren't as high as a 5-round fight, in my opinion. Shavkat, like I mentioned, has never gone the distance. That kind of works against me here. But Thompson has only been knocked out 1 time in the UFC. He's only been finished 1 time in the UFC. And I don't like using this word at all, but I'm going to use it for this. It was kind of a fluke, right? Him getting Superman punched by Anthony Pettis. Pettis isn't really known to do, like he's had stoppage wins in his career, but Pettis isn't really known for this. And I honestly, 9 times out of 10, if Stephen Thompson fights Anthony Pettis, he beats him. He was winning that fight. Pettis got the Superman punch, all the power to him, but there hasn't really been any evidence of Thompson being chinny or looking bad. I mean, he's fought guys like Masvidal. Woodley did drop him in their fight, but he couldn't finish him. Johnny Hendricks has knockout power. Luque has knockout power. Jeff Neal has knockout power. Kevin Holland has knockout power. Gilbert Burns has knockout power. Like, what I'm getting at here is that Thompson is not a chinny guy. Like, he's not a guy that's easy to finish. So I think that, Pettis lost, like I said, a bit of a fluke there. And he's also never been submitted. Thompson's got a good ground game. We saw the brown belt. I mentioned the accolades there. I just think it's going to be hard to finish him, especially in 3 rounds. Like, if Thompson was a guy that was showing a bit of wear and tear, or took a lot of damage in fights, and you could maybe say, okay, maybe this is the fight where we see him get finished. I don't know. The data otherwise doesn't really suggest that. Shavkat, if you look at it here, as far as his percentages of finishes, his highest percentage of finishes is by submission. It's at 53%. He's fighting a guy who's never been submitted. His second highest is by knockout. That's at 47%. Thompson's been knocked out 1 time, and like I mentioned, I think that's a bit of a fluke. The one thing I want to warn people about, I mean, you look at this on paper, I get the minus 500 betting line. I do. And again, I'm a guy who's very high on Shavkat here. But Thompson has fought better opposition. He just has. He's fought Woodley. He's fought Burns. He's fought, Bilal Muhammad. Those are all better than anyone that Shavkat's fought. You could say Jeff Neal. There's a common opponent they have. Shavkat finished him. Jeff Neal went the distance with Stephen Thompson. I mean, I don't think that's the deciding factor in this fight, so to speak. I think they both have shown that, like in my opinion, I don't think Thompson, he's losing his fights. The 2 losses that he had, the most recent losses that Thompson had, he got out wrestled. They didn't finish him. And again, it wasn't like Thompson was getting rocked in that fight. He just got out wrestled. I think Shavkat's got that in his back pocket. Shavkat trains with Gilbert Burns, someone that's already beat him. I think if he wanted to use his wrestling, he could go and do that. This may be the fight where Shavkat gets the finish, but I just think, like, if you're looking at the overall body of work of Thompson, he's a tough guy to take out. And like I said, Thompson has not shown any signs of him slowing down or aging badly. He's definitely not as fast as he used to be, but in my opinion, Thompson is not one of these guys like a Tony Ferguson, for example, who's been taking a ton of damage and looks like he's on the tail end of his career. Like, Thompson's still looking okay. He's just been getting out wrestled. That has nothing to do, in my opinion, with him being older. So yeah, I'm going Shavkat decision just because I think it'll be hard to finish. And if you even look at Shavkat's last fight against Jeff Neal, that was a 3rd round finish. So it's not like he finished him early, and even Neal got a few shots in there. There was a 3rd round submission in that one where he submitted Jeff Neal. Maybe that happens here against Thompson, but I think more likely he just goes the distance and just gets like a pretty decisive win here. So I'm going to go Shavkat by decision to bring down that juice a little bit. Would it surprise me if he got a 3rd round finish? No. I'll tell you, it would surprise me if he finishes Thompson in the 1st or 2nd round. I'll say that right now. As high as I am on Shavkat, I think Thompson is not a guy that you can take out very easily. So that's going to be my official pick, Shavkat Rakhmonov by decision over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So I know most of you here are going to be picking Shavkat. If you're picking Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, explain to me in the comments how you think he wins this fight. I would love to hear from that. If you're picking Shavkat, I want to know how you think he does it. I gave you my prediction here. Would love to hear from you. Also, let me know if there's any other notable fights you want me to preview that are coming up here. We got a bunch of fight announcements at the time I've done this video. And if you haven't seen it already, I already previewed the main event of this card, Colby Covington and Leon Edwards. I'm James Lynch. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @LynchOnSports. Appreciate you tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys soon.